Hey, this is the Elite Dark Knight teaching magic. Pretty much the basics. We're going to start with EDH Commander. I have my two Commander decks, and we're going to start a magic tutorial with them fighting each other. I probably only go about 10 turns in, if that, is to introduce you to the game and to solve some issues I have with it. So, without further ado, let's begin. In Magic, players start by shuffling their deck. It's a 100 card deck, one commander, unless it partners, but all the color of your cards must match the color of your commander. I am an Afara, god of the Polis. Blue-white, the side I'm playing this time. So all the cards in my deck must be blue and or white, or they can have no mana symbol as an artifact or colorless. The other one is blue-black, Atrata. All the cards in this deck must be blue or black. They cannot be outside the colors, or same thing, artifact or colorless. You're restricted to the color of your commander in this deck. It plays like any normal game, but in this case, you have 40 life apiece. And how it's generally played is once you take 21 combat damage from any commander, even your own, you lose the game. But you have 40 life to begin with, and a large deck, 99 cards plus your commander. We have both drawn 7 cards. There is no mulligan and no ley lines, so we begin the game. I won the flip. I begin the game. I'm going to place this quarter heads on top of my deck. I'll probably use this coin a quarter of the time. Like that. There's a reason why I do that. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My initial 7 hand. So my first turn, I'm going to play a Hollowed Fountain. It's a Plains Island, and when I play it, my opponent is good. It says I can take my turn. I do not draw since it's one-on-one. I will put it into play tapped like this on the field. If it comes into play untapped, I have to pay the 2 life for this particular card. And then I pass the turn when I have nothing else to do. So I played 1 land, I don't need this quarter yet. So my opponent will draw a card, look at their hand. They're in blue-black. All the cards are either blue or black, except this one, that's an artifact. It doesn't require any mana to play at all, or any mana to cast if it did. If it did have a mana cost. He will play his Watery Grave to play tapped like this. He'll cast his Mox, because it costs 0. And since he has nothing else to play, it taps for mana, and there's a legendary permanent under his control, and there isn't any. These lands are not legendary. So he's drawn his card, he's played 2 permanents. He'll pass it, it goes untap, upkeep, draw. I will untap my land. Now that gets my untap, upkeep, nothing happens. I will take this quarter off, draw a card, and put it back on. I know it is relatively early in the game. But because my opponent doesn't like for anyone to miss land drops, and maybe neither do I will play an island and take the quarter off and turn up tails. See, it's tails on this island, which means this is the land I played for this turn. It's off the deck. Then, my commander costs 4, I can't quite cast it right now. I'll tap this for a blue. It taps sideways, meaning you're adding mana to your mana pool. And I will cast a Roam-Right. It's a 1/1. I will choose plains. All my lands are plains in addition to the other types. That's not island plains, and that's still plains. And because I don't have any more moves to make, I will take this quarter off, put it back on top of my deck. My opponent could be doing the same thing, but I'm playing myself. So I don't necessarily only need to remember my side in this case. So, big draw. There's an Urborg in my hand, but I don't want to play that. I'm going to play the Command Tower. It comes into play untapped. Command Tower and adds 1 mana of any color mana pool, which is blue or black, based off the commander colors. And I do have something that costs 2 in my hand, a generic and a blue, for this 2/1. It's called Mystic Archaeologist. I've tapped 2 mana to play a 2 casting cost spell. I added blue, why not? We put all blue for that. And it has Summoning Sickness, so these creatures cannot attack right away, but I could use this ability if I had 5 more mana. It costs 5 mana, 3 generic blue to draw 2 cards. And that's his turn. I will then untap, upkeep, draw, put the quarterback on top on the head side. I will play a Castle Ardenvale, my 3rd land for the turn, to take the quarter off. Now it's tails on the land. I played my land for the turn. So I do have 2 cards out of 3. No, I have 3 cards out of 3, and 1 card that costs 1. So I'll play the one I feel is more restrictive towards my opponent. It'd be Thalia, Heretic Cathar. First strike, 3/2. Creatures in non-basic lands my opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. He has a 2/1, I have a 1/1, which means we would trade. If I were to attack him, I can only attack him in this game. He may block with this, they would trade. And I don't want to do that. We both have 1 toughness and we both die. We both die, so that's all I have. I will pass the turn to my opponent. Oh. Draw. And unfortunately, because of Thalia, my turns are going to go much slower. This Sunken Ruins is a non-basic land, so it enters tapped, like that, leaving with only 2 mana. That is not legendary, that doesn't add anything. So far, this deck is pretty much in the lead, all because of 1 card. It's obviously for playing anything that's 3, but I don't have anything that's 2. Generally, your opponents might not know something like this, but an educated guess by saying go, he's inhibited him, or her, whoever you're playing. Take this off, put that on. Prairie Stream. This is a non-basic land. It enters tapped on my side, not because of Thalia, but because unless I control 2 or more basic lands, it enters tapped. I only have 1 basic land. These are not basic lands. But I still have 3 mana to work with. And I'm going to take the quarter off and put it on this land. I will cast Teferi, Time Raveler. Each opponent can cast spells only anytime they can play a sorcery, so you play sorceries and magic when the stack is empty, and on your own turn. So I asked, is this okay? No counter spells or counter magic, so it resolves. And you may use its ability right away if you can. So I've got the -3 or the +1, and I will +1, I'll put it to 4. Like that. It has 4 loyalty, no 5 now. It started with 4, now it goes to 5. And I may cast sorceries as though they were instant, but I'm kind of tapped out. So I'll declare combat. So that untap, upkeep, draw step, pre-combat main phase, I played Teferi. Now my combat step, I declare attackers. I'm going to declare attackers any responses. No, so attack my opponent with a 3/2 first strike. Declares no blockers. As first strike would kill that before that would deal damage. That has first strike ability. So he does not block and he takes 3. He goes to 37. To 40. And my combat ends. I have a post-combat main phase. I could play another sorcery, though I do not have one. Can't cast one. End step. I would discard down to 7 cards, but I have 3 cards in hand, so nothing happens. The turn passes. Urborg. He plays Urborg, the land Tomb of Yawgmoth. It is a non-basic land, so it entered tapped. But he's back to 3 mana again. So what he's going to do is try to get a spell out. My opponent casts Thassa, God of the Sea. 2 generic blue, a 5/5 indestructible, but it's not a creature unless his devotion to blue is 5 or greater. At the beginning of his upkeep, he scries 1. And he can make a creature unblockable for 1 generic, 1 blue. And now this adds blue mana. Because this is legendary, this now adds a blue mana. So he's ahead in mana right now. Though he cannot do anything, except he sees a planeswalker here he doesn't want it to tick up. So he declares attackers. So the same kind of steps I have, he has, untap, upkeep, draw, phases and everything, it's identical for both. Nobody has any more or less. He attacks for 2 at this. I declined to block with that because this thing is going to go from 5 loyalty to 3 loyalty. Like that. Essentially this took 2 damage and its loyalty is reduced. End of combat, end of main phase, end step, 4 cards in hand. He passes a turn. So this will go back on top. Well, it should have already, but you know, take it off. Draw. Head side on the top of it. See, as you can tell, I've now run out of lands to play. So at this point, you may play 1 land per turn during one of your main phases, any of them. But since I have none, I may have to skip playing one. I have 4 mana, so that's not a bad thing. I can play spells. But if I want to play more things, I would want more land in theory. But I did draw something interesting. I'm going to tap my least useful land, in my opinion, right now, is the island. I'll tap 1 to cast a Soul Ring. It adds 2 if you tap it, 2 colorless, and it costs 1 to get out. It's pretty beautiful. So he has a god, Act-Fari. Could start balancing stuff, but this untapped as well, sorry. Everything untaps during a tap step. Your opponent cannot force this to remain tapped, it must untap. So, I will then, since both creatures are tapped, I will attack him for 4. He's unable to block because the tapped creature cannot block. He goes to 33. And he cannot untap. I have not passed my turn yet. I got a post-combat main phase, so don't let your opponent take turns out of order or ahead. So I will tap this for 2 colorless mana and a blue. This has blue or white to cast the Trophy Mage. It's a 2/2 when it enters the battlefield. I search my library for an artifact that costs exactly 3. I may search for it. I can fail to find, but I'm probably not a wise idea I did. Trying to think. I will go for the Sword of Feast and Famine. Sword of Feast and Famine. I will take this up to 4 so I can play sorceries as though we're an instant. And I failed to play a land this turn, so the quarter will stay there. Pass the turn to him. Well done. Scry. It's this. Doesn't need it. Ooh, drew Nyxos Shrine to Nyx. It's pretty neat. Okay, ooh, it enters tap though because of Thalia. So black, everything has black on this side. He plays Yawgmoth, Divine Physician. The 2/4 pro humans. So this is Yawgmoth, Divine Physician. He does things. And he'll attack again. So he's done with that. He's cast a spell, played his land. He'll attack again at this. And this time, I'm going to block like this. So he attacks this. You may block for your planeswalkers. So a 2/1 and a 2/2 trade. This one dies, they die, and go to the graveyard. It's generally beside your deck or somewhere you designate a graveyard. But those trade, and then he ends his turn. So I can do. I drew this. It has 2 abilities, a counterspell and a basic land cycling. And it's instant speed, so I'm doing it at a time, but I'm going to do it now. I'm going to show you a trick. It's called Floating Mana. Colorless and a blue, the least important land, I tap that one first. I have a colorless floating. It's called Floating Mana. I float 1 colorless mana. I cycle that, search my library for a basic land card. And to kind of complete the square or the circle, whatever you want to call it, it'll be a plains of one of each land out, or a basic, non-basic, and a basic of each type in the deck. Here it is, here's a plain. But it goes to my hand. Quarter goes on top. Land, I play my land for the turn. It comes to play untapped, it's a basic. So tails, let you know I played this land for the turn. Colorless mana is floating. So Afar costs 4. 1, 2, must tap a blue, 3, 4. So my commander comes down, it reads, as long as my devotion to white blue is less than 7, then it isn't a creature. So it has to be 7 or more for this to be a creature. It's a 6/5 indestructible, but not now. Actually, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more color, it's a creature. When it also has the ability, at the beginning of each upkeep, if a creature out of my battlefield from the last turn, I draw a card. So it's kind of a draw engine, a nice draw engine. And I'm going to kind of be brutal to the player who went second, the second player, or the Dimir, or the blue-black deck. I will tap a white and do Swords to Plowshares on Yawgmoth. This is an instant that exiles a creature from the game, so it goes to exile, not the graveyard. And he gains life equal to its power. It's a 2/4, so he gains 2 life. So this goes to my graveyard, and this goes here. And goes to 35. I'll attack him for 3, so he goes back to, or he goes down to 32. So yeah, you do have to keep track of all of this life and math and everything because it's the rules of the game. There are no cheating. I will -3 Teferi, so it goes to 1 loyalty. I'll return a permanent, return with target artifact, creature, or enchantment. This is an enchantment, so it will go back to his hand. And I will draw a card. Then, this is Tormod's Crypt. I can exile a graveyard if I tap and sack it. It costs nothing to get out, so I will play that there. So essentially, my Afar deck is obliterating my blue-black deck, but blue decks tend to go either way. It might look like you're losing, but you could win. You don't give up. But in the interest of length and video, this is very much the end. I'll probably cast the commander to make it, formal. I cast mine, he gets to cast his. So one more turn. So the same cards plus before, plus 1 new. So balancing a card gives the blue-white player knowledge, or the blue player knowledge. That Thassa's in his hand, and it would get discarded with any discard effects or windmill effects. So he plays a Cabal Stronghold. It adds black for each swamp you control by tap 3 for each basic swamp. So Urborg and Islands would affect that, but it enters tap because of Thalia. His land for the turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. So black, blue, blue, black. A 3/5 commander. It's a Trata. When she deals, he or she is unblockable. This commander is unblockable. It's a 3/5, which means none of my creatures can block it. She hits no matter what. And if it hits me, then I exile a creature with a hit counter. If I have 3 or more creatures in exile with a hit counter, I lose a game. That's how that works. So if she hits me 3 times when I have a creature out, she can exile it and I lose a game. But it does have summoning sickness. It can attack right away and it gives me a chance to deal with it, possibly. And we'll play on to see if a Trata makes it there. Depends what I draw. But she enters tapped, which means she can't block because of that. Because of Thalia. So this is sort of feast and famine. No responses, so it resolves. You have the chance. No, they cannot respond anymore. Sorcery speed, so there's no way that can be countered. So 1, 2. It's colorless to equip and play, which means you're not restricted to a mana. Oh, and this is back up here. I'll play Selfless where it's a 2/1 fly and I sack it to give all my creatures indestructible. So in this case, I declare attacker as attacking for 4. And because he cannot respond because of this sorcery speed, I hit him for 4. It goes down to 28. Then when the Sword of Feast and Famine hits, he discards a card. We'll discard this black creature, 1/4 pitiless plunder. It goes there. And tap all lands I control. One, two, three, 4. I tap 4 for an artifact. It costs 4 to get out, so I can tap any mana to play it. I'll tap those 4. And I will +1 this, put it to 2. And I'm out of a hand. I do no longer have any cards in my hand. I didn't play a land. And attacked, played everything. So pretty much, this game has worked very well for me, or spectacular for me. Here we go. Give him another turn. Honor of the Dark Realms. So you can use her right away since she's a planeswalker. Can use her right away. One of her abilities, and she's gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -7, -7 on this creature to remove a blocker. Because even if this tried to whack something, I could. Wait, it says exile. Hold on. Okay, so in response, he'll make everything indestructible, but the -3 kills Leon. It costs 3 low to activate it right away. So he sacks, that dies. And then that's not a creature, so it remains tapped. There's only 1 card left in my hand. It's called the High Market. 1 card in hand. And he played this. So, because my creature is indestructible, destroying lethal damage doesn't kill them. But Atraya is going to attack me for 3 unblockable, and she will exile this with a hit counter on it. So it has a hit counter. And if I get 2 more that way, I lose a game. She cannot target this because it's protection from black. So the pro black, it says exile target creature. She cannot target Thalia. That's why I equipped it to this one. And that's it. Play is done. 1 card in hand. And I can do this stuff at instant speed. Unless it says sorcery, it's instant speed unless it says sorcery on the card most of the time, usually. I will create a 0/1 goat. There's a goat token. So we'll just pretend there's one here, because that's pretty much it. Oh wait, a creature came. This is not a May ability. So I draw from this coming into play. And I draw for my turn. I forgot to draw a card, but I caught it at the end of his turn. So generally speaking, depending how your opponent is, if you forget to do something in Magic, and it's not a May ability, you have to do it. I caught it before I drew. So they may or might not let that go. But in either case, just so this thing doesn't get sacrifice an artifact, draw a card, it's a go. So I'll sacrifice the Tormod's Crypt to exile his graveyard. I will then sacrifice the goat to return the artifact to my hand and recast it. That's what that does, and I don't want my creatures getting whacked from this. Then 1, 2, 3, cast a creature that sacks. Then I will take this up to 3. Attack him for 5. Sorry, I made a mistake. He's at 2 less life. So you have to go back and correct mistakes. He's at 26 -5. He goes to 21. He goes to 21. I forgot about the extra 2 damage off the Sword of Feast and Famine. I untap all my land. He discards his card. That's not an exile. Then I'll float 1, untap it, 2, sag this. I'll search my library for 2 lands, put them into play. That's what that does. I don't want creatures in play because of this. I don't want them whacked or exiled. So I'll leave this in my hand for strategic purposes. This is probably going to kill him. And that's not a creature at all. And I did not play a land for the turn. That remains heads up on that. So this creates a land, creates a creature as a land, but it can still get whacked. But it's a token. I don't think it goes to exile. So I'm safe creating tokens, just not permanent creatures like this. Is a permanent, that's a token. They're both permanents, but the token goes poof. It doesn't go to exile. So the 1/1 white creature human token in Magic. Pass the turn. Last turn. Land. A scry, he'll keep it. He will finish off Teferi. Decide he chooses to attack that. I can't block it at all. So, and considering my board state versus his board state, he resigns, and I win. It's simply to save time. I could continue teaching the game, but you get the gist of it. It's all about your ethics and how much you can remember about the game. Like I forgot the 2 damage here and here. I made more mistakes than he did, but I won anyway. I mean, he didn't really draw very well, so I ended up winning. It could have gone either way. Generally, blue decks are really tricky. They're really sneaky, and like almost anything can happen. Hopefully, this helps people improve at the game. And this has been an introduction to Magic by the Elite Dark Knight, Mark S. Briggs. Thank you, and have a good night.